here. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining. My name is Harmon. I'm from Canary, if you can't tell from this obscenely white background that I've got going here. Thanks, everyone, for joining today. We're excited to be hosting this webinar with our partners, HTNG and Beekeeper, as well as our panelists, Vaughn and Matt. We're excited to have everyone joining, so thanks for taking the time. Obviously, a very extremely relevant topic in today's market, and there's been overwhelming interest for people joining. So appreciate you spending the time. For today, given our limited time, we'll start off with some quick introductions, and then we'll dive right in. And we'll try to make sure to leave some time at the end for questions from the audience. So feel free to chat message in throughout, and we'll try to keep track of some of the Q&A and try to get to those and pose them to our panelists at the end. So I'm happy to start and then pass it off to my co-moderator. My name is Harmon Narula. I'm one of the principals at Canary Technologies. I've been in hospitality for quite some time, previously also having been at Starwood Hotels and Resorts. For those of you not familiar with Canary, we provide a host of industry-leading operational, guest-facing solutions for hotels, specifically solutions like contactless check-in, digital authorizations, working with thousands of hotels across the board in more than 65 different countries. Andrada, do you want to maybe go next?
Yeah, sure. So my name is Andrada Parashev, Vice President Hospitality with Beekeeper, and previously heading strategy and communication with Fairmont Raffles Hotels and Accor Hotels Luxury Division. So again, Beekeeper, for those of you that haven't heard of Beekeeper yet, Beekeeper is the leading communication and collaboration platform in hospitality, which allows companies to reach and engage with their employees across locations, shifts, languages. So in a way, the counterpart for Canary, but when it comes to employees, the back of the house. And like Harmon said, we're excited to have collaborated with Canary and HTNG to bring this webinar and this hot topic. And super excited about these three amazing panelists that we have representing diverse perspectives, which I'm sure will make for a great discussion. So Mike, Vaughn, and Matt, would you please take a minute to introduce yourselves?
Sure, happy to, Andrada. Thank you. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. My name is Mike Blake. I'm the former CFO, former CIO, and now soon to be the former CEO of HTNG. After 10 days, I will be the newly minted SVP and Chief Technology Officer for AHLA. So bunch of titles there, but I really dig technology. So thanks for having me here. Vaughn?
Hey, thank you so much. Hey, everyone. Morning. Vaughn Davis, General Manager of Dream Hollywood. Some of you who aren't familiar with the Dream Group or Dream Hollywood, we are one of the premier luxury boutique hotel groups with robust food and beverage. I'm coming to you live from Los Angeles with a view of the Hollywood Hills from one of our luxurious Silver King rooms. I've been in the hospitality industry for quite some time. Started with the Gansevoort Group, and then Two Roads and Dream Group, and then Hyatt, and right back home, the Dream Group. So looking forward to a wonderful conversation. And I'm a big technology lover as well.
Thanks,
Matt,
Vaughn. Good afternoon, everybody. Matt Sutherland here at the Sheraton Panama City Beach Golf and Spa Resort. I've been with Crescent Hotels Resorts for about 10 years and in the business about 25. And I look forward to being part of the discussion today, and thank you all for having me.
Fantastic. Well, thanks everyone for joining. I think we can kick things off here and kind of what we're seeing in the market in terms of demand kind of roaring back, as we like to think. You know, one thing I'd love to kind of get the panelists to chat a little bit about here is we've seen kind of the numbers start to play out here. So I think STR's data, as per the week ending April 10th, they're saying that US occupancy is sitting somewhere around 60% in the US, which candidly is a little bit mind blowing just to think about where we were just 6-8 months ago. You know, pre-pandemic levels, April 2018, 2019, we were sitting somewhere around 70%. So not extremely far off. Of course, leisure has been the predominant driver here. I think the data is indicating that about 90% of travel is leisure right now in the US. And hotel booking websites are seeing about a 60% increase month over month in traffic. So we're definitely seeing the numbers trending in the right direction. Recognize this is a US centric view, given other parts of the world are not seeing that as much. But we'd love to hear from you all. I think, Mike, it'd be great to hear from you, just given your view across the industry, across regions. What are you seeing? Are you seeing this pickup happening?
Yeah, Harmon, just so US RevPAR in 2019, just for perspective, at its highest at 2019 was 95.22, okay? At its worst was 15.22. A disaster. I think any of us, I thought, 2008 was bad, right? And when I was at Hyatt, we saw some single digit occupancy. This was just the worst. But as of couple weeks ago, it's now up to 66.99. So still a little bit ways to go to the 95, but much better than the 15. So RevPAR is, for those of you out there who don't know it, it's just a good indication of revenue per available room, which helps us better understand what inventory is and what we're getting for it. So it's a real good gauge to get there. And I know there's still some folks out there around the world that are going through significant lockdowns and what have you, but I guess if the US is any indication, things are beginning to come back. Once again, the essential travel was first to come back, leisure's coming back, and now business will follow. So we kind of predicted that would happen, but it's nice to see that leisure is kind of where we thought it would be. Hopefully business will come back, and then the big business meetings will start coming back.
Vaughn, Matt, I think, a tale of two cities, right? California was quick to lock down, and the lockdowns have been prolonged. Matt, in Florida, it's been a little bit of a different case. Would love to hear your guys' view on this as well. Maybe, Vaughn, you can give us a little bit of color in terms of what you've been seeing. Have you been seeing this pick up?
Oh yeah, it's been extremely busy for us. On the first wave before the lockdown, we had just tremendous drive market traffic coming into the hotel and demand for just transient and leisure guests. We didn't see much group, of course, or corporate, but definitely occupancies in the high 60s. And then we had the lockdown that kind of restricted some of that travel, and we had the mobility restrictions in place that we still saw occupancies in the 20s and in the 30s, which was still a shocker for us. People wanted to get out, is the story that we were telling our team members internally and what we experienced. And then after this most recent mobility restrictions were lifted, now we're seeing occupancies in the 60s and in the 70s. And it is remarkable. The vaccinationers are out. They're excited. The pent-up demand from being locked down in their homes has caused them to come out in droves. And we have the outdoor facilities to encourage that kind of traffic, and our rooftop and our restaurants that have the outdoor dining experience, and in the pool. So we are extremely busy here, and we're excited about it. And the biggest thing for our guests with the demand is just our health and sanitation guidelines that we have in place. That's the number one feedback that we get from them. This is why they chose our hotel, and this is why they're happy to come here and stay with us.
Vaxicationers, I love that term.
Yeah.
How about on your end, Matt?
I would have to agree with Vaughn. It's to your point, it is a kind of a tale of two cities. We were fortunate in the fact that from a government regulation and a little bit less stringent local regulations, even last year, we were able to remain open. We saw occupancies numbers, last summer, June, July in the 70s. And, this last 8 weeks in the spring, we've seen midday occupancy 70 to 80% and 100% sold out on the weekends. To Vaughn's point, guests want to be out. We offer, 3 outdoor restaurants and bars, spa, fitness, multiple pools. So it has provided them that avenue to get out. So the transient demand is there. And we are fortunate. We are starting to see some group bookings. The social market has been great for us as far as weddings and sport groups. We kind of had to shift gears with the corporate segments and obviously associations, but we did shift gears, did see some sports group bookings, and now we're rolling into wedding season as well, and expect that demand to continue throughout the summer and into Q3 and Q4.
think we love to hear it, right? I think STR is predicting 2021 is going to have the strongest growth rate on record. I think driven primarily by things like the vaccine, savings rates being at an all-time high, consumer sentiment, the dropping unemployment rate right now. But I think with all that said, 2020 was certainly a doozy for our industry, right? I think, we can't overstate the challenges. And I think that the lasting impact that COVID and the pandemic's really going to have on our industry as a whole, I think it'd be great for the audience just learning a little bit about kind of what you all are seeing in terms of guest expectations, what you all might be doing, things that you're recognizing that you've seen work well, not work as well, what's changed over the last year or so. It'd be great to kind of get a little bit of sense of what, Vaughn and Matt, what you guys are seeing on property from an operations standpoint when it comes to guest expectations.
Yeah, guest expectations are considerably higher than previously experienced. Just imagine being stuck in your house for 6 months without anywhere to go and just binging Netflix and movies on HBO Go and HBO Max, etc. And then you finally get out, and it's a completely different world for the majority of individuals that were in the lockdown. And there is a lot of pent up, I guess, aggression. And for our guests, what we do is we just have to make sure that we're on our A game, always on our A game. Health and sanitation guidelines are the #1 passion point for guests. If they don't see the hand sanitizer, if they don't see the signs, if they don't see the temperatures being checked, the masks being worn, they're not comfortable and they'll let you know. So for us, we had to make sure that we're always on our A game and providing that type of experience, being proactive in understanding and anticipating guest needs to make sure that they're having a great experience. But yes, it has been an interesting ride. And a lot of my friends in the industry can attest to this. If you're still in the hospitality industry right now, you are 100 times stronger than you were before this pandemic started. I'll tell you that.
Matt, have you
Indeed,
seen?
and I would agree with everything that Vaughn says. It certainly has made us more resilient, and it's provided us with a different way of looking at things. But it's different guests have different beliefs, and you have to work through those challenges. You had to work through all of that with your team. You had to be there to support them, and it was kind of a we're all in this together approach, if you will. But most certainly, probably the biggest thing for us was, you are coming to a more relaxed regulation. You might be from New York, you might be from Atlanta, you might be from Chicago, and you're coming to Florida. And yes, they are more relaxed, but we are still maintaining those standards. And we really had to do everything we could to enforce those with every guest that came into the hotel. Like I said, Vaughn mentioned the sanitizer dispensers and the electrostatic spraying and being visible, and associates cleaning menus and just being vigilant with everything, and it really did make us better. We most certainly will come out of this with better systems, processes, and have a cleaner hotel most certainly.
Yeah. On that note, Matt, it'd be interesting to hear from you both, or all three of you, just about what are some of the updates and changes that you may have made to kind of meet some of these expectations, maybe whether it's technology or other items, and which of those do you think are here to stay versus which do you think, potentially you may not need in the future?
Yeah,
Vaughn,
I
Mike,
think,
maybe, yeah.
Yeah, I can jump in there. As previously alluded to, the psychological profile of the guests has changed significantly due to the pandemic. And what we're finding, even before the pandemic transpired, what we found is that 80% to 85% of our guests would rather text via one of the text platforms that we use, as opposed to pick up the phone in the room and call down to the front desk. And now the pandemic has accelerated that thought process and that mentality for our guests. So we pretty much proactively recreated a completely new operating model with that in mind, that the guest does not necessarily want to speak to an associate face to face for an extended period of time. right? Understanding what the CDC has brought to our attention about the ways that the virus is spread, we added some, QR codes that would allow for guests to access a menu in our restaurant and or pay for their meal via the QR code. So they didn't have to actually give a credit card to one of our team members to then process payment. I call it the digitization of our entire guest journey, where we had the contactless check-in, where we utilized Canary. And this is not a shameless plug, it's just me being honest. I had to work with the Canary team to create an entire new process that I love, and it's here to stay. It's honestly here to stay, because the whole pre-arrival guest journey is now being done through a mobile device, pretty much. From the registration card to adding the credit card and going through the pre-arrival experience. So when guests arrive to the hotel, they have their key on their mobile device and they can go right up to their room. Yes, we still have team members that are available to interact with guests, because there are those touch points that are important from a human perspective that need to happen. But it's only when the guest wants it. And for us, we're utilizing our experience with the new type of guests that we're seeing to anticipate their needs and ensure that we are reading them from a mile away. They don't want to be spoken to in close proximity. We're not doing it. And we have all the technology in place to ensure that that doesn't have to happen. And then in regards to delivering to rooms, we have a robot. His name is Alfred. I'm a big Batman fan. So is my COO, so that worked out. And the robot delivers items to the guest room. And we've gotten such great feedback in regards to the steps and measures that we've taken to mitigate the amount of team member risk and exposure to guests that were unnecessary from internal and external guests, which are team members.
Harmon, what I'm hearing loud and clear from Vaughn is, that which was old is new, and that those technologies which are tried and true, which we've all kind of used before and know about them, now they're expected. And the expectation is at a much higher level, because I think the population that's coming back now and the one that's going to be coming back is just going to expect that technology to work. And they're going to expect that, if they don't want to have a lot of contact, they want that interaction to be digital. They want the systems to work. They want them to be tried and true, and they're not going to take a lot of risks. So from an owner perspective, or somebody who is out there looking for technology, don't try to invent it yourself. I keep telling, hotel folks, look, don't have these huge development teams. You don't need them, because there's great partners out there. This is a very complex ecosystem. Don't try to invent it. Go out there and get to people who are tried and true, because those are the ones where you're going to win. And by the way, unfortunately, a lot of the brands, a lot of the hotel companies, they too experienced a great deal of layoffs during this time with staffing. They need to go out and procure those solutions. They don't have time anymore to invent them. So folks like Canary, folks like Beekeeper, those are tried and true solutions. They were working before, they're working now, and now they're even more needed, and absolutely ones where the guests are expecting them.
Yeah. And to that point, we even found an app that allows you not to have to use luggage tags anymore. You'd think that wouldn't be a big deal, but that was one of the biggest things for guests, is that they didn't have to physically have a tag that a team member touched, then given to them, and they're now holding on to, which could then allow for the spread of the virus. So that's been a huge addition to what we're doing here for the guest journey and the arrival experience.
Agree, guys. I would also add to those comments. We also found, which was one of our hardest things coming back last summer, was our spa facility here at the resort, and we had to we implemented some new systems and process for contactless intake forms, all online. So that avenue, that department was probably the most associate safety cautious department in our resort. So really for us to implement that and have that ready, that really not only helped the guests, but it also helped our associates with the comfort level coming back to work and allowed them another safe avenue.
Yeah, and if you understand human psychology, you know that we're all cyclical, right? We all pretty much do the same thing every day until there's a major change. And then we start to adopt that new way of life. And a lot of my colleagues are under the impression that they're coming back into the old world. That's not happening. This is a new world. And a lot of this technology is here to stay. And the pandemic has only accelerated the development and utilization of this new technology. And if you study, you go further back to, the Spanish flu and pandemics of the past, you'll understand that human nature and behavior has changed significantly after every single one of those 100-year cycles. So we here at Dream Hotel Group, we're under that understanding and anticipating that this new tech that we've added to the guest journey is here to stay, and it's only going to improve the guest experience tremendously.
Thank you, gentlemen. If we can switch the gears a little bit from guests to employees. I mean, we talked about guest expectations. How about staff expectations and needs? I mean, your staff is not that different from your guests. I mean, they also want to feel safe, right? I mean, you talk about human nature. They're part of that too. And they've also had one of the hardest years on record, and they struggled with the lockdowns, making ends meet. And then they came back to jobs that were not really their jobs in the past. I mean, you've changed the jobs on them, right, in this period. So can you talk about what you have seen regarding staff expectations and needs as a result of COVID? And how are you able to address these needs? And Matt, I'll start with you.
Absolutely, love to. So obviously the safety and well-being of our associates was always top of mind, but you're right, it did change for us. And our biggest, directive to our team was we've revamped all of our training, our protocol, our safety guidelines internally. We completely changed everything that we did in our business, and it did provide them more level of comfort. New hire orientation being ramped, COVID protocols, and those types of things, social distancing, limiting, seats, limiting time, scheduled breaks, et cetera. So they were alternating, and it created, more safety for our associates. I think the well-being too is a very large portion of it, and we are fortunate that we do have fitness instructors here at the resort. And not only did we revamp the fitness component for our guests to promote that to our guests, but also for our associates with some different well-being, health and wellness, opened up some PM classes and things that people could do after work as an added benefit for them as well. So that's been well received, and we obviously look to expand on that as well.
All right, that's awesome, Matt, and that's great stuff that you guys put in place for the team members. And I love my hotel guests, my external guests as we call them, but my favorite people are the internal guests. So all of the processes that we put in place were to ensure that we mitigated the spread of this virus unnecessarily to our team members, even down to our meetings. All of our meetings are now done on Microsoft Teams, and we ensure that our team members have the similar break structure that you have, Matt. And then the health and wellness component was a huge part of it. One of the things we did for housekeeping week, we had health and wellness, a company come down and work with our housekeeping team, and that was well received. Temperature checks, masks, hand sanitizer on every elevator landing, just making sure that they understood that we took this very seriously and they are our number one priority. De-escalation training was another big part of this, right? What we touched on before. Yeah, that wasn't something that necessarily all team members needed to have. Maybe just security and some of the managers, but now everyone has de-escalation training under their belt. And then, of course, working with the breaks and making sure that they didn't have to clean rooms as well too, which is a big touch, right? Think about this. Part of the LA City or LA County protocols was that you had to put the room out for upwards 24 to 48 hours. And that was well received by our room attendants because they felt like they were being thought of and put first as opposed to the business, because they now had that assurance that the room was out for 24 to 48 hours and it was COVID free essentially, to allow them to go back into the room to clean it. And we took it a step further. We added UV lights. So we would have those in the room 30 minutes prior before the team members would go in, just in another step towards sanitizing the room and then allow them to go and clean it. So we took a lot of steps to make sure they felt comfortable. Even listening to them in the sense of, you know, the workload was different now. If with the rooms not being cleaned on a regular stay over basis, then it'll be more difficult for them to clean it after that 24, 48 hour layover, right? So now team members would express their concerns about the added workload, and we listened and we ensured we gave extra time off if necessary, understanding childcare, and some team members didn't need to work from the hotel. They could work from home, and then come to the hotel on times that it was necessary for them to work from. So those are some of the steps that we took here, just listening to our team members and putting them first.
Thank you. And you mentioned, you know, some contactless technology being implemented. Did you see any pushback from the employees? Like, is there a view that, well, you're bringing more technology, then you need less jobs or less people to do the jobs? Or is this an opportunity for something else?
I mean, Andrada, I think this is absolutely a great time to be using technology. I mean, I think that first of all, it's challenging. You know, staffing is challenging right now, and folks do want to be safe. I mean, there's things that we haven't really even used to think of, things like air quality, right? Whereas there's new technology out there from, you know, we had a startup company join HTNG called ARV. I mean, those guys are from Europe, and they are just fantastic people who are doing actually things for air quality within hotels. That is so necessary at this point in time. Think of things like, I was talking to some folks over at Samsung. They've invented a robot for hospitality to actually come into the room and disinfect it with UV light. That's fantastic. You know, when you start thinking about things like that and the innovation you see, you know, communication is going to be key. You want to be able to talk to your to all of your employees at a moment's notice. And, you know, with Staff Alert and some of these other technologies, you know, everything is kind of amped up right now, and you need all of these things to make it work. And it makes everybody's life a whole lot safer and easier.
So let's go now to the current challenge. Biggest challenge today seems to be staffing. You know, hotels are struggling everywhere, and you know, it's a sign of recovery, so it's a good thing. But it can also be a real stress point for the hotels. I mean, I've heard of instances of flying housekeepers from New York to Texas, and the hotels would pay for the plane ticket and providing full room and board. I mean, it's desperate measure for desperate times. So what's going out there, Mike? Have you heard this? Yeah.
Yeah, I think one of the things that, you know, what there's a lot of challenges, but I think some of us are actually looking at scheduling tools these days. I mean, the tools that have kind of been interesting now are becoming essential. And things like scheduling, things like employee communications, things like being able to know who's on what shift when and how can we use them, right? So utilization is becoming key. And, you know, you need tools that better communicate. I mean, communication now is even more important with staff and guests than it ever has been. And different folks have different points of communication and different ways of being communicated too. So I got to tell you, it's great to see some of these contactless, frictionless tools, which really are about communication and getting these kind of tasks done where you couldn't do them before in a self-service type mode.
And Matt and Vaughn, what do you see? Is it difficult for you to hire back employees? And then what happens after you hire them? I mean, it's one thing to find them, but then you have to onboard them, train them, and everybody's busy, everybody's stretched. So what happens after?
You know, Andrada, we're in the same position as everybody else from a hiring perspective. We tried to get ahead of the curve. We started in January and held a job fair, and we did have some early success. And we were prepared with February occupancy numbers, but then March and the last 8 weeks come and spring break, and we weren't ahead of the curve. However, in the last few weeks, we have had success with a third-party independent contractor for room attendants and housekeeping associates, which is going to put us in a position here about the 1st of May to be ready for summer season. So that is a success that we have had here. But from an associate perspective, it still comes down to the training. It still comes down to spending more dollars with certified training on associates, and you're having to spend more to train these associates and get them to where we need to get them. But I'll piggyback on Mike a little bit in our earlier discussion. Beekeeper has been one of those tools for us internally that have helped us with that, meaning, hey, we have a shift available open to help us in this department. If you can work a PM, please help. If you're willing to cross-train, we've also been able to use it for things of that nature, not to mention as far as communication, group chats between departments, really trying to do our best to do all we can. The more you communicate, the better you are. I'm a firm believer in over-communication, so that platform has been a great tool for us. We're actually looking at it for some internal associate opinion surveys and doing some different things with that coming up here through the summer. So, again, we're not all the way there yet from a staffing perspective, but do expect that we will be positioned here this summer. Another thing is we've had to look at our rates. We've had to sign on bonuses, which were maybe never thought of in our business for hourly positions and line level associates, but those are proven to be some key benefits for us here recently. So
yeah, the wage wars are happening and they are real.
Yep.
We experienced this on the first go around. So what we did was we kind of shifted our approach and called an audible. Our CEO and Vice President of Human Resources did a great job of keeping our team members that were laid off engaged with constant communication, keeping them updated as to the process and to the next steps. And thankfully, on the second go around, I haven't had that challenge. It has been such a blessing. I can't begin to tell you guys, because the majority of my friends in the industry here in Los Angeles, they're all experiencing what everyone else is experiencing and having to do things like a signing bonus and increasing the wage for their associates, hourly wages for their associates. So yeah, we kept everyone engaged and just reached out to them and brought them back. The number one thing for me was making sure that I wasn't forcibly bringing team members back and having to lay them off again. That was by far one of the most challenging aspects of this pandemic for me, is to have to sit in a room with upwards to 80 plus people and explain to them that I have to send them home for unforeseeable time in the future. But our room attendants were excited to come back. We did have only 2 who had some challenges with childcare. And of course, that's to be anticipated as well. But the majority of our room attendants are back. Our front desk guest experience agents, as we call them, and our front office supervisors or assistant front office managers were able to get back. The only challenge I have right now, and if anyone knows any lifeguards, please let me know. I need 2. That is the biggest challenge. And you'd think in California that lifeguards would be in an abundance, right? Nope. That's the biggest challenge for us right now. And that was just making the adjustment after the first go around and understanding what challenges would present themselves. And our team members coming back were excited. They were so happy to be back. The majority of them did not want to be home. It was so difficult for them to be at home for that extended period of time. They were frustrated. So I'm happy for them. Happy for them, and I'm happy to have them back.
Hey, Vaughn,
Great.
I could send you 2 Blake boys. They're both certified lifeguarders. So
Send them over.
you could send them over. But Vaughn, what your experience is, what I'm hearing from the industry is that there is a huge dearth of staffing, and that, you know, folks are competing with government subsidies right now. Some of the workers have moved to retail. It's really difficult right now if you're an owner of a hotel.
Yeah, culture. That's the
Yeah.
biggest driver for us internally, right? When they came back, we threw like a nice little party for them. We had a couple, of course, outdoors on our rooftop, socially distanced.
Yep.
Not more than 10 people to be exact. But we even celebrated, we had 2 team members that were just newly minted citizens of the United States of America, and we got them some Portos, and just making sure that you encourage the team members and kept your culture alive. That was the biggest thing, because a lot of us are going through some stressful scenarios. I mean, the majority of the industry took a pay cut, right? Upwards to 30%, 25% some cases. And it's put a strain on the dynamics of your family. And then there's family members that were laid off. At one point there were 2 breadwinners in the home, and now there's 1. So a lot of the leaders have, succumbed to the challenges and have taken a turn to just focusing on their families, which is understandable. But the number one thing for me was to persevere and rise above that mindset and make sure that we are the safe haven for joy and happiness and excitement for the team members, because when they go back home, it's a completely different world. When they step outside of the hotel, once again, it's a stressful scenario for them, an environment. They turn on the news, it's constantly how many people have died, and there's a new strain, there's a new variant, and all this negativity. So we made it very clear, our complex director of human resources and the rest of the leaders from our executive committee team, is that this is going to be the positivity zone for our team members. Make it positive. I don't care what you're going through. It's positive in here.
I love that remark, Vaughn. I think culture and positivity around that for everyone, across the board, hospitality and all industries, I think is like something the world needs right now. I know we have limited time left, but I think one of the big topics that I think some folks had also written in about was, so we've seen this demand coming back. We've seen these guest expectations evolving, the staff expectations evolving, and hoteliers are doing more with less for all intents and purposes. And a lot of that, I think, Mike, you had mentioned, is coming down to using different types of technology, right, on all sides of your businesses and so forth. So I wanted to kind of get your guys' remarks a little bit about how you think about making decisions around technology, buying decisions around technology, about what to bring in where, how to bring it in, and so forth. And what are some of the trends that you're seeing, right? So what are some of the trends you're seeing in technology, and then how are you thinking about kind of the buying decisions around those and so forth? And I know, Mike, this is something you're close with. Would love to get your thoughts on this real quick before, of course, Vaughn and Matt, you as well.
Yeah, I think, Harmon, one of the things we really didn't touch on, but which has, most of if things aren't scary enough, the whole world of cybersecurity is, we've gone into overdrive. I mean, as we've kind of locked down and kind of have this lower level of activity, the bad guys haven't. And ransomware attacks, some of these other, I don't think a day goes by or a minute goes by really when I don't get 3 or 4 phishing attacks. I think all of us do, and into our email where they're asking, or you get something on a phone, you name it, the bad guys are hard at work trying to get money. And that's the thing. I think as we start looking at technology, and when I was the CIO at Hyatt, this was kind of our thing. We really wanted to get tried and true, applications from technology providers that absolutely focused on security as part of their solution, because you don't want to be developing something on your own and then, think of security as an afterthought. Security has to be front and center. And that cybersecurity stuff, a lot of us want to just make it go away and forget about it, but it's always there. It's ever present. And you need folks who are tried and true, who have done this before. And that's why I stress it time and time again. You want the folks who absolutely have underpinnings within technology that are focused on cybersecurity. And we're fortunate that both, both Canary and Beekeeper are just like that, right? I mean, that's what you guys think about. You think about it so we don't have to. And that's what I keep stressing to folks is, that's something, let the people who do it right do it.
Any additional thoughts on your end, Vaughn or Matt, in terms of the trends you're seeing in technology and kind of how you're thinking about buying decisions and what to bring in?
Yeah, cybersecurity and SolarWinds hack, that was a big eye opener for everyone. And understanding how complex that hack was and how many companies were affected really opened our eyes. And one of the biggest things is working with companies like Canary, which allowed us to be able to essentially, I don't want to give away too many trade secrets here, but find a way to know who might be presenting a fraudulent credit card in advance. Let's just say that. And that was extremely helpful because it reduced our amounts of chargebacks and here on property, because we did see an uptick in fraudulent or nefarious activity around credit cards and attempted fraud from some of our prospective guests. And that is to be expected, right? When there are no jobs, people tend to take desperate measures to do whatever they can do to make ends meet or have some fun and go out and spend money that's not theirs at hotels. So working with partners like Canary and some of our other partners to be able to identify that in advance has been extremely helpful. The other trends that I'm seeing are the mobile keys. People are now adopting the robots, the UV lights we're seeing as well. AR, MR, VR are now new components to extend the guest experience outside of the hotel. Heading into the metaverse, we're seeing some trends towards metaverse and NFT. We're doing some fun things. Just you wait, give us about a month or so. You're going to see some new fun ideas coming out from Dream Hotel Group around the NFT space and the metaverse. And yeah, if you take a look at how much technology has grown, and I think we're missing this, right? Because all of a sudden there's a new iPhone every year, but I don't think we're realizing how much it has grown in such a short period of time. We all essentially have supercomputers in our wrists or in our pockets, and might have a baby supercomputer on our wrists pretty soon, right? And seeing that this is the exponential growth, which is then leading into, of course, interstellar travel and the Artemis project, the Gateway project with NASA. I am excited for the future, and I'm seeing that all of these trends are leading into those larger big picture initiatives that are happening.
Anything to add on your end, Matt?
Like a hats off to Vaughn there. Vaughn is very much embraced the technology there. It's great to hear all those exciting things. Mobile keys on deck for us here at the resort here in the fourth quarter. My biggest thing, to Mike's point, obviously, and to Vaughn's, of security, and that's obviously number one for us. But I also think, and we also ran into this, a couple of things. We were looking at some different QR menu options during the pandemic, and found out as we started vetting vendors and having discussions, what we were asking for them wasn't fully in their realm. So really, any of my decision is going to be, obviously having our IT professionals of the world in our organization involved and making sure we're vetting everything fully before we go down a path for any new technology, obviously. But to Vaughn's point, there's definitely a lot out there, and it is certainly not going away.
Fantastic. Well, we really appreciate you all taking the time here to talk us through these topics that we had kind of pre-slated. We did have some questions come in from the audience for folks that are able to stick around for another 5 minutes or so. Happy to pose a few of these here to the team and can jump in to kind of get their perspective. One of the ones that came in, and whoever kind of thinks they can best kind of answer it for their property is, Are all services on property open and available for customers, or do you have limited offerings due to continued restrictions? And if so, how do you manage customer expectations around the limited offerings?
That's a great question. That's a great question. I mean, you constantly have to evolve, right? In anything you do in life, not just in business, but in life in general. So anything that was thrown our way, we made an adjustment and evolved, created something new. So for example, we're here in Los Angeles, we're not allowed to have mini bars in rooms. So we created a digital mini bar, which you can order through the iPad in your room or from your mobile device, from a QR code that's available here in the room or on the tablet. And then the robot will deliver your items. We also added through Canary an add-on feature pre-arrival. So if you wanted to, you can then choose what items you wanted from your mini bar even before you arrive to the hotel, so those can then be delivered to your room. Our restaurants are fully operational, thankfully. We're allowed to have 50% occupancy or 200, whichever comes first for our restaurants. So those are open. That's for indoors and outdoors now, which has been great. But before, when those restrictions were in place, we built a patio. We built a whole new patio outdoors for one of our restaurants, Beauty in Essex, which allowed us to add an additional 25 seats on top of the outdoor space that was already pre-existing. We extended our dining for Highlight Grill on our rooftop, which is outdoors, all the way over to the pool deck, right, in the evenings for dinner. For Tao, outside on the sidewalk, we got a sidewalk dining permit. We took over all the parking meters and extended sidewalk dining all the way across in front of Tao. It's just about making sure that you made the adjustments to ensure that you were profitable and still relevant. That was the biggest thing for us. It's a fight at the end of the day. You know, if you were to lay back and just say, oh, I give up, throw your hands in the air, it's over. But for us, that wasn't our mentality. We had to figure out a way to succeed within this time. And as challenging as it was, I'm thankful that we're still open and our venues are open and we were able to keep team members employed. That was the biggest thing for me. If I had to make a decision to put a robot in a hotel that would keep 60 people employed as opposed to 50 people, I'll put a robot in the hotel.
That's fantastic. Thanks, Vaughn.
I would add to that as well. You know, we did have some limitations, you know, obviously last year during the restrictions, but last summer it was opened up to outside dining. So to Vaughn's point, we did take advantage of our outdoor venues and really promoted that. We closed our inside restaurant for lunch and dinner and served it outside. And so we were able to get around it, revamp the seating, but we currently, everything is fully 100% open, no restrictions. And it's very, very busy here in Florida.
Because what we're doing here from the guest experience is revolutionary. Our guest experience has only improved, I think, since the pandemic with less staff, because we've added all this technology and anticipated all of these next steps for the guest to ensure that it's a seamless experience without much friction. We understand human mindset, human psychology, and what all of these my fun friends in the tech world, like you cool guys, have done. You've removed a lot of steps to ensure that every process is seamless, right? So it's all just one click, it's quick, it's tempo, it's to the point. Facebook has done it, Twitter, Instagram, you name it. They've removed all of these steps to ensure they can get to that end use or engagement period for that individual who's utilizing or that subscriber that's utilizing the solution. So we've done the same thing for the guest experience, where you don't have to now come to the front desk and tell me who you are again, and then give me your identification again, give me your credit card again. I have to read you the reg card again, or the registration card for some of those who don't understand some of this hotel terminologies. It's all seamless. So you come in and you get to go to your room. If you'd like to order something, you can order from the iPad. It comes right on up, or text us and it comes right on up. If I'm in my home and I can go, Alexa, order me some dog food, and the dog food arrives tomorrow because she knows exactly what dog food I ordered last time. Or Alexa, order me new Nespresso pods. Would you like to order the same pods, Vaughn? Yes. And it's at my house the next day. Why do guests have to go through all of this convoluted and cumbersome processes to communicate here at a hotel? when the majority of them have that technology readily available at home. So what we did was we adopted that mindset and ensured that our guest journey reflected something that was similar or better than what they had at home.
Yeah, I think, Vaughn, what you're going to find is there were hotel owners out there who really took advantage of the pandemic in the way of rebuilding some of their hotels, some of their network infrastructure, doing, with single digit occupancy, you can do some rewiring, put in fiber as opposed to cable into the room. You can really do a lot, and there's folks who change their processes. Now there's folks coming back who are going to have to compete with those folks. So they're already playing catch up. So they better get the tools, they better get the processes, and they better get their people trained in an effort to jump forward or start making those investments right away. Because now is not the time to be sitting on your hands hoping things will get better. Things will get better. The occupancy will be there, but you got to be ready for it. And it's just the folks are expecting you to be ready for it. So get the tools.
Right. One of our internal mottos is you don't want to be the blockbuster, but you want to be the Netflix, right?
There you go.
You got to keep innovating. You have to keep innovating because, I mean, this demo that in-person communication in the old way, or I like to say the old guard of how hotels operated, at one point, they're not going to be around. And this new demo, Gen Y, Gen Z, those are the ones that are going to be staying at your properties. And those are the ones that are tech savvy and that are readily approaching this technology and accepting it. The majority of which work for the tech companies at a very young age. So they're coming to your properties and they're next. So you need to be prepared, I think, or the industry needs to be prepared for that type of a shift in the guest expectations.
Fantastic. Well, thanks everyone. I know we've already run about 10-15 minutes over here, but we sincerely appreciate, our panelists. If we were in person, which one day we will be either at your hotel or your hotel, Vaughn, but we're giving you guys a round of applause. So we appreciate you all jumping on here. For everyone that joined us today in the audience, thanks again for the time. I know we didn't get to everyone's questions. There was an email address in the webinar invite, so feel free to send your questions there, and we'll do our best job of trying to get them answered by Mike, Matt, and Vaughn. But with that, we just wanted to wrap up from Beekeeper, HTNG, and Canary. Thanks very much for everyone for joining, and thank you to Matt, Mike, and Vaughn for spending the time with us today.
Thanks for having me. Thank you. This was fun.
Thanks again.
Thank you.
Take care.
Take care, everyone.
Yes. Matt, I'm coming to Florida.
All right, come on, Vaughn.
Come visit. Come visit. Take care, guys.